Hello, thank you for joining us on our latest installment of Exploring the World of Tarot. Today we're going to look at another suit in the Minor Arcana. This one that we'll be focusing on is the suit of Swords. The swords are often associated with the element of air, and where cups were focused in on emotions, swords actually focuses in more on your mental fortitude and intellect. The Ace of Swords represents that moment when everything kind of comes together in your mind, whether it's something that is inspiring you, whether it's something that's suddenly become clear that you might have been struggling with before. It's all about that initial realization. But it's also important to remember that despite this moment of clarity or inspiration, you really do have to consider the fact that the Ace of Swords is the beginning of the suit of Swords, so it's the beginning of a journey or cycle in which you really have to have that level of mental fortitude that we were talking about earlier.
Next we have the Two of Swords. The figure here is holding the two swords in opposition, which represents a difficult choice she has to make, but she's also blindfolded herself, thus preventing herself from seeing the situation fully enough to actually come to a decision. We sometimes like to blindfold ourselves to the truth when we don't want to face things that are difficult, but the only way to move forward is to take the blindfold off.
The Three of Swords is a card that shows someone who thinks that they have been betrayed, that their trust has been broken, and it's a really card that seeks to say that yes, those thoughts, those feelings are valid and you are allowed to think and feel them. It's just a normal reaction to the experience of being betrayed.
The Four of Swords represents the need to take a step back and relax. Oftentimes we put in a lot of work into our everyday lives, our relationships, our jobs, but sometimes you can get burnt out, and when that happens, you need to relax, take a step back, and do some things for yourself.
The Five of Swords is a card that has very strong imagery. You see that there has been some sort of battle, and again, since it was swords, it's most likely something to do with the battle of wits or mental fortitude. We have our winner up at the front who's collected the swords, and our losers in the back who are facing away and looking very sad. However, our winner also doesn't look particularly happy, and that's something that this card really seeks to point out, in that when you are having some sort of battle of wits, you really need to choose your battles carefully, and that's the most important aspect to remember when it comes to your mental well-being. Because just because you win doesn't mean you're going to be happy.
The Six of Swords represents moving forward after a difficult time. Even though you're going into something new, something unknown, you know that it's better than what you've left behind, even if it doesn't seem that way at first. While it might seem easier to just bunker down where you are, or maybe ignore the problem altogether, sometimes the only way out is forward.
The imagery here for the Seven of Swords shows a woman who is kind of creeping away. She's looking back to make sure no one's following her as she walks off into a less populated area, it seems. This card represents the need for secrecy or even little white lies for a positive sake. It promotes that sometimes the others around you don't need to know everything. You just want to make sure that you aren't lying in a way that's harming other people.
The Eight of Swords represents hopelessness, but not just any hopelessness, that sort of willful hopelessness where we could actually do something about our situation, but we're trying to pretend like we can't. Now, we've all been there, but the fact of the matter is that because you have the skills to get yourself out of this situation, that's absolutely what you should be doing, and there's no other way for you to fix it, so what are you waiting for?
The Nine of Swords shows someone who's sitting up in bed at night and is really looking like they are in complete anguish. This is a card of internal anxiety, of what your own brain is doing to you to make you stay up and think all sorts of negative thoughts, whether they're real or whether there's something that maybe isn't quite as bad as you think. Either way, what this card focuses on is that you need to confront the anxiety by either talking to other people or by at least getting out of your own head, because the mind is what's currently tormenting you.
It's fine. No, really, everything is fine. It's just that you've hit rock bottom and everything hurts and you don't know what to do with yourself anymore. But you can still scroll through Twitter and Facebook, so that means everything is fine. But really, when you hit rock bottom, meaningless distractions are sometimes all you have. The thing to remember is that the only way to go from the bottom is up, and this will be over one day.
The Page of Swords represents someone who is always on the move. They always have something that they want to be doing or trying out, and they have a very positive sort of energy, while being a very determined person.
The Knight of Swords represents the kind of person who comes into any situation bursting with confidence, always with something to say, but who isn't quite nice or kind or particularly vulnerable. You might not notice it at first over all the bluster, but the armor is fully in place and they do not want you to get past it.
The Queen of Swords is really good at looking at the big picture and really calling things out for what they are. She isn't going to pull punches or try to soften the blow of the truth, which, being a very observant person, she tends to have a good idea of what's really going on in any situation. Just remember, whether this is someone else in your life or you, this queen always has the best intentions at heart.
The King of Swords is a wise figure, a role model you can turn to in many different kinds of situations. They're always going to be able to tell you what is right or what is fair, but they might not be the person you want to turn to if your question is from the emotional realm of your life, because that's not their strong suit.
Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you'll attend our next session as well on Tuesday, February 23rd at 3 p.m. We will be going over the Suit of Wands.
Support public libraries. Like, share, and subscribe for more great videos.